green building came about because buildings have a huge impact on the environment. Worldwide, they account for about 35% of energy consumption and a corresponding amount of GHG production. So they're a huge emitter of greenhouse gas emissions. They're also one of the largest users, or consume the most amount of potable water. They're also, in terms of siding and the materials and waste that's created from our buildings, is immense. And so green building is about reducing that environmental impact. And we know right now, without having to cost a penny more, that we can create buildings, build buildings, operate buildings that reduce energy by 25 to 30%, that reduce water by about 40%, that use better, more environmentally friendly products, and that also start to apply the technologies of clean energy, so renewables and wind and other technologies. And again, this is happening in buildings that don't have to cost a penny more to do.
And when we talk about it, are we talking more about new buildings, or are we also talking about them retrofitting the older buildings that we already have?
It's kind of a bit of a yin and a yang on the new construction versus the existing. And what I mean by that is, in the developed world, the big kind of tough place to get at is the existing buildings. Now, there are financial models that are out there that are showing that you can retrofit your existing building stock for no upfront costs, and then you can pay for that initial improvement through energy savings over time. And so you're essentially financing those guaranteed energy savings and other utility savings over time. And those models are starting to spread, as you all know, in England, and there's a whole variety of these models being used in the United States and other places. But in the developing world, where there's rapid development, China's expected to build over the next 10 years the equivalent of the entire U.S. building stock. So in 10 years, they're building a lot of buildings, and they really need to, get these technologies and these best practices into their buildings as soon as possible. And a lot of that can come through rather modest code improvements, and so making adjustments in their code to account for greater energy efficiency and things like that.
And obviously, you were talking about changes in codes, but also how much of it's going to come from sort of new design techniques and sort of more innovative ideas to help out with?
Well, at the U.S. Green Building Council, we have a rating system that strives for leadership in green building. It's called the LEED Green Building Rating System, and that rating system is now represents about 8 billion square feet of real estate around the world. To give you an example of how much real estate that is, the island of Manhattan has about 400 million square feet of commercial office space. So we're certifying, registering 20 times that. But a tool is only as good as the workforce that's ready to use it. And so what we've also done is we have, in many respects, tried to green industries from the inside out. Architects, engineers, contractors, building operators, and managers. All those folks are being our organization helps try to train those folks, and we now have 200,000 LEED accredited professionals, which is a professional credentialing program that we have. And we're seeing now that as many as 2/3 of architects and engineers in the U.S. have some green building experience or credential, which is profound, because it's just like you said, if there's not leadership in the industries that are actually designing and constructing these buildings, then they can't use the tool, and they can't strive for the leadership in energy and water that we want to see.
And you've obviously sort of stepped on the point of the amount of jobs that then, I guess, can be created through this as well. And I was looking on your website, and it's a huge amount of money that could be made through green buildings. How do you think you properly sell that economic argument to the people that are...
Well, the case for green building has been driven primarily through the business case. I say that green building sits at the nexus of saving energy, saving people money, and creating jobs. And in the United States, there's a potential to save $1 trillion by 2020 through green building and mostly through the retrofit market. And again, these are savings that can happen with no additional first cost, because building by building these can happen by paid from savings approaches. Other studies show that we can create as much as 1 million jobs. Again, this is in the United States context, by 2020 by ramping up retrofits. But there's two things happening. I think you're creating new kinds of jobs, and there's definitely this green job growth. But you're also, like I said before, you're greening industry from the inside out. So there's existing industries, carpenters, architects, engineers, contractors. Those folks are working now, and they're getting new expertise, new knowledge on advancing. The great thing is the end of our life is about not having to worry about green building, that it's just the norm.
Yeah.
And that's the same with the various building sector industries.
So if we were to take, I guess, the house of the future, the green building, what would it involve? What would it include? What features would it have?
Well, green building is on a path to full sustainability, almost to the extent of like regenerative buildings that are actually giving back to the environment. And right now we're not there. We're seeing some of the best buildings reduce energy by 70, 80%. We are starting to see net zero energy buildings. There are buildings that are bringing in water and putting it back cleaner than what than when they first had it. So there is an opportunity to get to a state where a building is truly sustainable. So it's not using energy, or it's using all clean energy through a combination of extensive energy efficiency and then renewables, where they're able to almost do the wastewater treatment at that building, perhaps using distributed generation, all sorts of technologies. But I think we're going to get there. We're moving so quickly in this field. Every year it seems like a new year, new technology, new advancements. Right now, what's I think really important is finding the synergies to hit multiple values. Because if you just think about energy in a vacuum, you could retrofit a school and say, hey, we need to have this school be more energy efficient. And you could go into a certain classroom that has windows and say, well, wait a second, we can be more energy efficient by taking out all those windows. And then you don't have any daylight. And the kids don't get to look outside. So you have to balance energy, you have to balance water, you have to balance daylighting, you have to balance indoor air quality. And all those things together make the perfect green building.
Just one final point. What role do you think things like smart technologies will have in this sort of move forward as well? So your building being able to react to the climate or different
Right.
things.
Well, you get to see. I go into an office every day. It's a LEED Platinum building, and when I'm walking through the halls real early in the morning when no one else is there, only the lights that are above me turn on. So those are the smart technologies that we need, and they're permeating not just the building. So the building is getting more complex, more sophisticated, which also means that in our operations and management of that building, we need to be more sophisticated. And so we're trying to bridge that divide. But also the systems of buildings. So how does a building relate to other buildings around it? How does the building relate to the neighborhood? Can you be a green building if you're not near public transportation and other mainstreams of transport? So those things need to be, I think, again, balanced in a way that meets this need of not just the smart building, but connects to a smart grid, and they get to talk to each other. All of those I see as accelerants. Those accelerate the opportunity of not just the building, but the neighborhood, and then also the city.